All right, everyone. It's 7:30, so let's get the show moving along. Welcome to the March 2021 Rocky Mountain Railroad Club program. Tonight we'll have Colorado photographer John Crisanti as our guest. But first, a couple of general rules and announcements. I would ask that we hold all questions to the end. I'm going to keep everybody muted during the program, but after that I'll open it up and allow you to unmute yourselves. After Dave and Denny finish the club announcements, if anybody's got any news, I'll open it up at that point too. If anybody on our YouTube stream has any questions during the program, just go ahead and put them in the chat window. I will ask John when I get the chance, somewhere at the end of the program. And with that, I would like to turn it over to our president and vice president, Dave.
Hey, good evening. Thanks, Nathan, for driving this meeting again, and welcome, John. Good to have you. I'm looking forward to the meeting. So you may want to unmute David. He'll be unhappy, and we need him to contribute. So, or unmute yourself, I think, Dave. I'm not sure.
There you go. Here now.
Good evening. Good to see you too. So anyway, it's a delight to be here again. It's March, so it's like spring's coming, guys, and good to have everybody with you. We got some neat stuff, I think, coming on during the year this year, and some good possibilities to do a couple of excursions and hopefully something at the Railroad Museum with 20, and we'll see what all is happening. Dave's got some other announcements for us. We are starting to take applications for the grant, for the $1,000 grant. And usually we have 5 of those out, and Ron is kind of driving that this year with Nathan. So if you know somebody that's deserving, we'd sure like to see those come in, and it's always fun and rewarding to give opportunity to award some money to people preserving railroad history here. And we've had some donations to the foundation, and we appreciate that. And I'm always going to be bucking to see if some more folks would kick some money, and we would like to stabilize that foundation to be able to continue way into the future to give money. And I am going to make a plea, which the board doesn't know I'm doing, but I'm doing this to everybody on Zoom and some other places. You know, we could use a little more membership help. So if you're really enjoying this and you're joining us every week, consider joining $30 if you have the if we just have internet delivery of the rail report. So anyway, one way or another, it's great to be here with folks that love one of the things that I really love, the steam railroads and interurbans and diesels and everything else that runs on 2 rails. So anyway, David, I know you got some stuff to share.
Yeah, a little bit of narrow gauge news. Some of you may have read this either online or in our newsletter. The Cumberson Toltec is working on making an oil burner out of engine 489. That potentially gets them through if there's a fire danger season, that if they had an oil burner, they could have less risk of sparking it up. As you know, Durango and Silverton has a 493. 473 is just about ready to go as an oil burner, and they're also working on one of their 480s that'll probably be out this season. And back to the Cumberson Toltec, they would probably, if they're going to have one, they will probably have 2, so that you've got a second engine for a second train or backup or whatever. I actually had lunch with Stathi Pappas about a week and a half ago, and he made a good point that a lot of us are kind of sad that coal burners are getting changed over to oil burners, but he also pointed out that a lot of power plants around the country are switching away from coal, and it's not a Democrat or Republican thing, it's an economic thing. And so if some of the coal mines and sources of coal were to close down for the power plants, you can imagine that there's not going to be as readily available source of coal for the steam locomotives. So this is kind of a way to cover your aspect, in these kind of things. So we don't want to go all diesel on these things, and we know that most of these little railroads have diesels for switching and whatnot too. But that's a tidbit there. Sometimes we have an update from Pat Morrow with news from Park County, Colorado, up around Como. I don't see him on here yet. He may tune in later. Let's see.
Upcoming shows.
Upcoming shows. Next month, we have Dennis Livesey from New York will be showing us a retrospective of his stuff since sometime around 1970. And in May, we will have Bruce Barrett, who has worked for the Santa Fe and BNSF, and he will give us some insight as to how things work with trackage rights, whether it's other railroads running on BNSF or BNSF trains running on something else. So he's a guy that's seen that from the inside. So that's kind of a different angle that we don't hear about very often. We are not ready to announce who's going to be our June program yet, but we'll have that coming up pretty soon. Now, most of you are familiar with our meetings and you kind of know how these things go, but I know that people will probably discover us on YouTube. So if you've stumbled across us, we are this is the monthly meeting of the Rocky Mountain Railroad Club, which was formed in 1938 in Denver by rail fans back then. And in the years in between, we have had regular meetings like this where we talk about current events, and we usually have a program, a talk or a slideshow or sometimes film or video, just to let you know if you've discovered us by accident. If nobody else has any announcements, I will probably go ahead and introduce John. Are you pretty well done, Denny?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Denny is our current president. I'm a past president. Nathan, who is our technical director, is also a past president. So now I will turn it over to John. This is one of the freshest shows we've had because it's only about a month since he was down there. Go ahead, John.
All right, thanks for having me. So last month for about 6 days, my good friend Kirk and Tyler took a trip down to Arizona to railfan the former Santa Fe main line that goes from Los Angeles to Chicago. And the portion we mainly focused on was the Seligman Sub, which starts in Winslow, Arizona, and runs 293 miles to Needles, California. So Kirk has been down there once. That was back in 2016. Of course, myself, I've never been down there. The only time I've ever rail fanned the transcontinental main line was out in Illinois about a couple or so years ago. And then Tyler's been down to a couple of times east of Belen and west of Belen and parts of the Seligman Sub. So how we did the trip is we left about 6 o'clock in the morning from Longmont and wanted to let's see here, there we go, and wanted to chase Amtrak 3 down, and we wanted to have the trip work with Amtrak's tri-weekly schedule that's been going on since October of last year. So we left Longmont about 6 and got to Trinidad at about the same time Amtrak 3 got into Trinidad. And then from there, we hot-footed over to the Santa Fe cantilever signals at the crossovers at Jansen at the bottom of Raton Pass. And right here is Amtrak 3 after doing their station stop, going through the Santa Fe signals, protecting the crossovers there at Jansen. Then afterwards, we went over Raton Pass and got to Raton to gas up and get ahead of the train. And our first shot in New Mexico would be at the first semaphore sets about a few miles south of Springer. This is about milepost 706. And at some point last year, BNSF put semaphore tops on the signals, making them a complete set. And then I think these are only one of a few sets that are remaining now after BNSF removed a few last September. So skipping ahead, this is Romeoville off of Interstate 25 just south of Las Vegas. This is off of US Highway 84 that goes down to Santa Rosa. Then our next spot is the second to last semaphore set just south of Las Vegas. This is near Bernal, just west of the siding at Chappelle. And then this is passing the former Santa Fe Depot, which is now a post office in Glorieta. So after getting Amtrak 3 the previous day, we went over to Holbrook to spend the night there so we can have better access to Winslow and also points west for the rest of the day. So after we woke up in Holbrook, we decided to start moving west towards Winslow. And while on Interstate 40, we were coming up to the Jackrabbits trading post off of old Route 66, and we saw a headlight off in the distance. So we got off the interstate and just wanted to do something with this eastbound that was coming with the Jackrabbit, here it is, sign off of Route 66. And our first BNSF train of the trip happens to be a very colorful last ship consisting of modern GE power, some older EMD power. And the last unit on the train is a former Tri-City and Olympia Railway SD40-2. It's used to be owned by the Union Pacific, based off the patched over number boards and the low mounted ditch lights. So after doing that, we headed over to Winslow, to the west end of Winslow, and we knew Amtrak 4 was running a little tardy that morning, so we were able to get a let's say less common daylight shot of it still on the Seligman sub, and then this is them coming into Winslow with the Phase 2 Heritage unit second out. And then right after Amtrak got in to do their station stop, a blend to Phoenix merchandise train was departing the yard in Winslow, starting its journey over the Seligman sub to Williams Junction and then heading down to Phoenix. And then right after that merchandise train departed, the BNSF's hottest train on the system, the North Bay UPS train, came in with 5 GEs all powered up real well. See the San Francisco peaks in the background, still freshly covered with snow from the previous weeks. So after doing some shots at the west end of Winslow, we decided to play a little touristy in Winslow and went into town and found the park that's near the depot in Winslow, and consists of, I believe, 3 Santa Fe cabooses and a Santa Fe crane just south of the downtown area. And then, of course, when you visit Winslow, you got to visit the standing on the corner off of US Route 66. So after leaving Winslow, our next stop was going to be Canyon Diablo. We wanted to get there in an ample amount of time because the road from the interstate to the actual bridge is not in the best condition. It's a extremely poor maintained road. On average, takes about maybe 25 minutes just to get out there, and it's only 3 miles from the interstate. So you just have to take your time. So when we were almost to the bridge, we noticed this eastbound manifest train parked in the passing siding there, and off in the distance, we've found this westbound vehicle train coming up to the east end of the siding and crossovers there. So we just stopped and grabbed the quick snapshot of it, knocking down the signals there at East Canyon Diablo. And pretty much this gives you a perspective of what the road looks like going out to the bridge from the interstate. So, I mean, if you have good tires and adequate clearance, you'll be able to make it just fine. This is right on the east side of the bridge. So as soon as we got there, an eastbound stack train showed up. So we bolted out of the car and went and found our spots and got a quick shot of it going over the bridge here. And then after that, decided to walk around just to find some different angles of the bridge. And at the time, we knew it was mostly going to be westbound traffic, since eastbound traffic was extremely light at the time. So decided to find different angles that would suit westbounds a lot better. And this is the Kansas City to Barstow merchandise train. And if you look closely at the bottom of the canyon there, you can see the old bridge abutments when the Atlantic and Pacific built the original bridge across the canyon back in the late 1800s. And right after the Kansas City Barstow train, the Winslow to Phoenix Z train, UPS train, went over the bridge. So after doing Canyon Diablo, we went over through Flagstaff and over the Arizona Divide to the crossover at Maine. And we caught up to the same manifest that we shot at Canyon Diablo. This is from the grade crossing there at Maine. Plenty of snow on the ground still from the previous week. And then you can faintly see the rear end of the Kansas City Barstow merchandise train, and this is a eastbound stack train or eastbound Z train, Los Angeles to Memphis, cresting the hill there at Maine, heading towards the Arizona Divide and on towards Winslow. And a little while later, the same Winslow to Phoenix Z train that we saw at Canyon Diablo again, going through Maine. And then a little while later, an eastbound Long Beach to Chicago stack train cresting the hill at Maine. And then afterwards, we went further west towards Williams Junction, which can be seen back here where the big antennas are and the signals are. This is shot from the Garland Prairie road crossing. This is actually a combined stack train and ethanol train. Pretty much combine them together out west, and this is heading east towards Flagstaff. So after getting that, we went just a little further east of the Garland Prairie road crossing to a location called Bootlegger. This is just west of Shallender. And this is an eastbound Stockton to Willow Springs UPS in perishable train. And then a little while later, an eastbound stack train from Atlanta to LA comes around the curve with the San Francisco peaks slowly becoming visible from the cloud cover that's been surrounding them all day in nice afternoon light. So after that, we decided that we were going to spend the night in Flagstaff because originally the next day we wanted to do the Crookton cutoff, but because there was so much moisture that the area had received in the past week or two, that it wasn't feasible to attempt it with all the mud. So we just stuck around the Flagstaff area, and to end off the evening, we went to the grade crossing at Cosnino, which is which is just west of Darling. And this is the Phoenix to Belen manifest. And then a little while later, this is a pair of Norfolk Southern units and a BNSF unit led a Blue Island, Illinois to San Bernardino vehicle train. However, with this train, they tripped up the dragging equipment. They had the dragging equipment detector and hotbox detector at East Darling, so they had to come to a stop here at the Cosnino grade crossing to have a Carmen do a inspection of the car. So that would be the only shot that we would get of this train before it just came to a complete stop a few seconds later. So early the next morning, we got up and went down to the Flagstaff Depot to get sunrise shots of any eastbounds or westbounds that would be passing through. This is the Alliance, Texas to San Bernardino UPS train. Going by the Flagstaff Amtrak Depot. And then a little while later, a Los Angeles Harbor to Clovis stack train raced by the Amtrak Depot in Flagstaff. So after doing the Flagstaff Depot, we figured we head east of town just a little bit to the famous, well-known location at Darling near Winona. And this is the Kingman to Winslow merchandise freight with a BNSF Warm Bonnet -9 third out. And then our next train is the Memphis to Los Angeles Z train. This is looking the other way in Darling. And then after that Z train passed by, this train's counterpart showed up running eastbound. Pair of GEs with the San Francisco peaks in the background. And then we just started making our way west slowly. So we decided to get off the Cosnino Road crossing since we knew there was an eastbound coming out of Flagstaff, and decided to do a grab shot there. And it was quite a nice change to see a solid set of Heritage 2 power, considering mostly every train down there has at least something in BNSF's swoosh scheme. So it was actually quite a nice change of pace for once, just to get something a little pre 2006, 2005-ish. This is the This is the LA Harbor to Chicago stack train. So going back the previous night at Cosnino with that Phoenix Belen manifest, it turns out that that train ended up derailing a couple of cars east of Winslow out in New Mexico. I believe it was around Gallup or something like that. Don't remember. Or actually, I think it was Grants. So that ended up tying the railroad up the net pretty much this day. So the dispatcher was trying to shuffle trains around and start parking them in strategic locations, trying to get the higher priority trains around the lower priority trains. So right here, we got to the crossing at Maine just in time to catch a an eastbound Z train overtaking a lower priority stack train here at the main grade crossing. So after that eastbound crossed over in front of them there at the crossovers earlier, this westbound Z train heads west through Maine with a relatively new Tier 4 GEVO sucking out. So after grabbing some shots at Maine, we headed over back to the Garland Prairie Road crossing east of Williams Junction and got a couple of westbounds there. And this one right here is the Winslow to Phoenix UPS train. So after doing shots there and driving through the town of Williams, we headed west on 40 and got off and took Route 66 pretty much all the way west and started following the tracks from Crookton. So our next spot would be here at Pica, which is, I believe, 2 control points west of Seligman. This is a westbound priority stack train going by the former Santa Fe water tanks there at the west end of the crossovers. And one of BNSF's 25th anniversary units is third out on the train. So after grabbing a couple of trains there, we knew that there was going to be at least 3 more eastbound. So we went back towards Seligman and started doing some exploring. So from there, we took some dirt roads west out of Seligman and eventually found this very photogenic spot between there and the crossovers at Audley. And here, this is the Barstow to Kansas City merchandise train running on the wrong main. Normally it's left-hand running between Truxton and going east on towards Belen. And then they go back to right-hand running from Truxton west out towards Needles and Barstow. So after that train goes by, the Los Angeles to Memphis Z train pops up running on the correct left-hand main with a 4 set of GEVOs elephant style. And then our last of 3 eastbounds is the San Bernardino to Chicago stack train. So with the lack of traffic, we knew that there was going to be some eastbounds the further west we went. So after getting our eastbounds near at that overlook just east of Audley, we hopped back on Route 66 and continued west. And by the time we got to Truxton, there were a couple of eastbounds going through Crozier Canyon. And our first one here is the San Bernardino to Alliance, Texas UPS train. This is going over the newly constructed Truxton flyover that BNSF opened late last year. This eliminates the need for having the dispatcher to cross trains over on a regular crossover. Um, this would do it naturally, like the one that's on at the bottom of Cajon Pass at Frost. And then following right behind the the Z train is a empty grain train. So after ending that day, we headed to the town of Kingman to spend the night there, because the very next day we were going to get up early and actually start our day in Needles, California. So all of us having not been to California. Well, I have been there. I've been there, I think 20 something years ago, so I hardly remember it. But anyways, we got to Needles just right before sunrise, and our first train here is a westbound Chicago to San Bernardino stack train. They just got done crew changing here and are now entering the Needle sub for the trip across the Mojave Desert towards Barstow. And this is pretty much what we were driving in the entire trip. Nissan Xterra at the BNSF train park there, just west of the old Harvey House depot in Needles. So a little while later, another westbound was going to departed. This is the Willow Springs, or this is the Kansas City to Los Angeles UPS train. And this is then passing by the rail cars that they have on display there. A couple of old Santa Fe box cars and a old Santa Fe caboose. So after doing Needles, we crossed back into Arizona, went to the first location right across the state line at Topak. And at that point, we knew there was going to be some westbounds showing up. So we decided to do the S curve just east of the big Santa Fe bridge there near the Colorado River. And this is the Memphis to Los Angeles UPS train. And then right behind that is the Chicago to San Bernardino UPS train. And after getting some shots there at the S curve, we basically turned around from the same spot, walked over, and got the couple of more eastbounds going through Topak. This is just east of the Santa Fe bridge there, which can be seen in the background. This is the Los Angeles to Chicago Z train with another 25th anniversary unit trailing second out. And then after this, we went down to the actual bridge going over the Colorado River. And this is the San Bernardino to Chicago UPS train. So after doing Topak, we got on 40 and got off at the San Francisco Wash, which is located just west of Yucca. And this is the same UPS train that we shot at the Santa Fe Bridge at Topak. A wider version of the shot of the train going over the actual wash. And then a little while later, a westbound stack train with a relatively clean war bonnet -9 was leading a trio of BNSF Gevos. So it was quite nice to see war bonnet leader down there, even though we did see a lot of quite a handful of war bonnets almost every single day down there. This is approaching that San Francisco Wash Bridge. And then following right behind is the another Z train, Lyons, Texas to San Bernardino. So afterwards, we headed over towards Kingman Canyon, and since we knew that there were westbounds coming. But what also intrigued us is that there was maintenance having time on the North Main, the correct westbound main. So they were routing westbounds on the wrong main through Kingman Canyon. So we took the opportunity to find a vantage point that is not commonly shot as far as I know, and we were able to get 3 westbounds going over the second Santa Fe Bridge in Kingman Canyon. And this is the hot Willow Springs to LA Z UPS train. And then following right behind that was a lower priority stack train, Memphis to Long Beach. And then our third westbound is a Long Beach to, or Clovis to Long Beach stack train with a Norfolk Southern unit fourth out. So after doing Kingman Canyon, we went and picked up our friend David, who lives right next to the Southern Transcon, right on the western edge of Crozier Canyon. And we decided to actually drive up towards the top of Crozier Canyon, just west of Truxton. Uh, it's a very fun off-roady drive. High clearance vehicle is required, and adequate tires is recommended. But for the most part, it wasn't too terrible. It was a lot of fun uh, going up that. And this is pretty much our parking spot, just right above the where the track, right above where the tracks begin to curve south for a bit, going through the canyon. So walking in a little bit, this is our first train going through the canyon. This is a Barstow to Kansas City merchandise train with a pair of former Santa Fe -9s second out. Um, still earning revenue for the railroad on home rails. Train sounded amazing going through with the sound echoing off of the canyon walls, working up the grade towards Truxton. And then right behind that was a stack train from Long Beach going to Memphis, going through Crozier Canyon. And then this is the rear end DPU units shoving on the rear of that same stack train. And then our only westbound that we would be able to get in Crozier Canyon is this westbound Bear Table train going through the first S curve in Crozier Canyon, at the east end of Crozier Canyon. So after hiking back to the car, we started driving down slowly towards the eastern end of Crozier Canyon, and we knew there was a westbound or two coming, so we decided to grab a shot just right on the eastern entrance of the canyon, and this is the Atlanta to San Bernardino UPS or Z train. And back here, you can actually see the new Truxton flyover. So after getting back on Route 66, we went onto the other side of Crozier Canyon through Valentine and went on to the Hackberry Road crossing, and we were able to get this Chicago to Stockton Z train coming around the curve, doing every bit of 70 miles an hour. And it's quite impressive to actually see a train coming around that curve doing 70. And then after doing that shot, we went further east, closer to the west end of the crossovers at Valentine. And this is a eastbound LA to Ohio, or North Baltimore, Ohio stack train going through this small cut just west of Valentine. And there was supposed to be a grain train coming, but as soon as the rear end of that stack train cleared, the grain train just showed up right there as soon as the stack train cleared. So we weren't able to get a shot at that. So we headed back to the Hackberry Road crossing where we caught that westbound Z train earlier. And this is a eastbound San Bernardino to Chicago stack train approaching the Hackberry Road crossing. So after that, we went over to Antares, just west of Hackberry. This is the start of the big sweeping curve there, where the tracks go from a northeastward direction to a more of a east-southeastward direction. This is just before sunset. This is the San Bernardino to Alliance, Texas Z train. And then right after the sun went down, this is the Belen to Barstow merchandise train heading towards Kingman and on towards Needles from Antares. So we decided to spend another night in Kingman, and early next morning, after checking out of the hotel, we went over to the Amtrak Kingman Depot and wanted to get some sunrise shots of of some westbounds going by the depot. And this would be the first of two, and they're also running the wrong main too. Normally they would be running on the right hand main here. And this is the Chicago to Los Angeles stack train. So just right after sunrise, the next westbound showed up going by the Kingman Depot, and this is the Memphis to Los Angeles Z train. So after getting the Kingman Depot, we went back to Kingman Canyon to try and do some morning shots of the canyon itself, and we were able to get this westbound in good morning light going around the S-curve in the canyon here. And then a little while later, Barstow to Kansas City Manifest had another pair of ex-Santa Fe Dash 9s still earning revenue for the railroad going over the second Santa Fe Bridge in Kingman Canyon going eastbound. And then following right behind that manifest is a San Bernardino to Chicago Z train, and then in the background is Belen to Barstow merchandise train, which you can see right behind the bridge going west out of the canyon. And then before leaving, we were able to catch this westbound Kansas City to Long Beach stack train with a pair of Norfolk Southern units leading a pair of BNSF units, and pretty much perfect lighting going through the big S curve there in Kingman Canyon. And as we proceeded east, we got ahead of this manifest that we ended up missing going through Kingman Canyon. This is coming into Crozier Canyon on the western edge. This is the Barstow to Tulsa merchandise train with a nice array of power, war bond Heritage 1-9, and another Norfolk Southern unit. And then after doing that, we went to just right outside the western edge of Crozier Canyon, where the tracks dip south for a little bit before dipping west towards Valentine. And this is the Clovis to Richmond vehicle / intermodal train coming out of Crozier Canyon. And then going further east, this is a westbound Z train with some steel coils tacked on the head and about to pass under the Route 66 bridge near Crookton. So by the time we got back to Flagstaff, we discovered that the merchandise train that had the pair of war bonnets on it broke in two just east of Flagstaff. So that created sort of a bottleneck for trains going in both directions. So they had a basically single track part of the railroad while they were getting that situation resolved. And this is at the Amtrak depot in Flagstaff. This is a westbound stack train. And following right behind it is the Willow Springs to Los Angeles UPS train going by the depot. And after grabbing those shots, we headed east to an overlook right near Darling or Winona off of Interstate 40. Ideally, the goal was for us to make it to the very top of the overlook. Most of us did, but because of the terrain and how out of shape I am, I've only made it halfway up. So I had to make do to what was available for me. This is a eastbound stack train with a relatively clean Heritage 2 painted -9 leading in SD70 Ace. And then scooting over from the same exact spot, it's the same train meeting a repositioned intermodal train that's coming up to Darling along I-40 there. And just looking out of this spot, you could actually see for so many miles and see how many trains are actually in the shot. I believe there are 6 trains in this one photograph. There's 2 right here in the foreground that's closest to me. Let's see here. There's 2 more right up here. And then there's another one right over here, another westbound. And faintly back here is the Flagstaff local heading back west. So I think there was like 5 trains in this shot. And Messing around with the area that I was working with, decided to try a different angle of the next westbound that would show up. And that's the rear end of the same westbound from the previous shot, rear end DPUs. So after doing that, we hung out with some friends that we met up with in Flagstaff, had dinner and hung out at the Flagstaff Depot for most of the evening. And then after that, we headed east to Holbrook to spend the night there for the return trip back the next day. So after waking up the very last day, we started heading east from Holbrook and started heading towards New Mexico. And driving east, we learned that there were at least a couple of westbounds coming, and obviously we were ahead of Amtrak 4 at the time, so we wanted to grab some shots on the Gallup sub. And this is a westbound vehicle train going through Hoke, Arizona, just west of Lupton, not far from the New Mexico-Arizona state line, just after sunrise. And following right behind was a combined stack train, Z train, heading westbound. But of course, with this train going by, Amtrak 4 popped up on the track behind the train, so we ended up not getting a shot of it there until later in the day. So after crossing over into New Mexico and getting gas in Grants, we continued east and stopped at the crossovers in the east end of the split at Rio Preco, just west of Belen. And this is a Barstow to Chicago stack train. Approaching the Rio Preco crossovers where the mains come back together on the east end. And shortly after that eastbound went by, the westbound Willow Springs to San Bernardino UPS train flew by us doing track speed heading west through Rio Preco. And then this is just east of the Rio Preco grade crossing. You can actually see the crossovers right here. And this is the San Bernardino to Chicago stack train. And faintly back here, you could actually see the rear end of the previous westbound we shot at the Rio Preco crossing. All right, so after gassing up, or after grabbing lunch in Albuquerque, we headed back north on 25 to get ahead of Amtrak 4. And Amtrak 3 was also running that day, so we decided to try and get both trains while we were still down there. And this is Amtrak 3 going through the east end of Row through the Santa Fe searchlights. And then after meeting Amtrak 4 at Glorieta, this is Amtrak 4 going through the searchlight signals at the west end of Row. And then this is going through the semaphore sets at the east end of the setting at Ojita, just compass south of Las Vegas or west of Las Vegas. So after doing that, we raced through Las Vegas and went on towards the passing sighting at Levi, just east of Wagon Mountain, which can be faintly seen here right behind the train. And this is Amtrak 4 going through the west end of the siding at Levi. And then not knowingly that Amtrak 4 slowed down a couple of times going through Springer and the siding at French, we were able to actually get ahead of Amtrak 4, and we took the opportunity to pace alongside Amtrak 4 on Interstate 25, doing their speed. And hearing a train doing 79 miles an hour over jointed rail it's quite fun. And this would be our last shot of the trip. This is just west of Raton, and that's our good friend Tyler, who pretty much drove all the way back home on our last day from Holbrook back to Longmont. And this would be the very last shot of the trip and the last shot of the presentation.
Nice. Nice. John, you feel like taking some questions?
Go ahead. I should be all answers.
All answers. Well, I thought of a couple of things for the people that have tuned in that maybe not as up to speed on some of the lingo. Well, they might be curious where you got your train symbols, how you know what the terminal ends of those trains, where they start and where they're going to stop are. It's probably because you have friends that work for the railroad and can look them up for you, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's pretty much the answer right there. We just are good friends with some people that work for the railroad, and they can just look that up right for us. So it's just nice info to have. Just curious to know where the train came from and where it was going.
How many days were you out there again?
We left Tuesday morning and got back Sunday evening.
And this was right around the first week of February, right?
It was the very first week of February. Yep, it was February 2nd through February 7th.
And some people probably don't know what you mean when you say a Z train, but that's usually a priority train.
Z train on BNSF is a high priority intermodal train. It carries UPS, FedEx, and all that other high priority commodities across the railroad.
Yeah, the ones that need to get from the ports to maybe Chicago, or like you said, Fort Worth or Houston, something like that. Memphis.
Yeah, pretty much all over. That's why the Transcon is very busy, because you have trains coming from all different points throughout the country, so that you just get a lot of train traffic flowing in.
And most of us know what Transcon is, but for those that are casually tuning in, that means the Transcontinental, which pretty much is like their main line between Chicago and Southern California. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's basically their cross country route.
And another thought I had was, out there in desert country, if you hadn't have gone in February, you might have had to watch more for snakes, right?
Yes. One of the tips that I got from people regarding visiting Canyon Diablo is watch out for snakes, but because they're all sleeping this time of year, that wasn't an issue.
Our friend John Scott is usually tuning in from Australia. I'm sure you know about rail fanning and snakes, right, John?
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm sure ours don't quite measure up, but in the warm part of the year, it would be a lot more dicey to go out where John was.
They like to lie along the rail and warm themselves up.
Sure. Yeah, when they're not quite warmed up yet. Yeah.
Well, and not only that, it's a good time of year to go down there because the weather is pretty much mild. Like for instance, you go west of Winslow and you start climbing towards Flagstaff, and at that point, you're basically at 7,000 feet. You're higher than most places along the Front Range at that point, and you get snow every year. So it's pretty much just like being here at home. But then
Right.
but then once you get west of Flagstaff, you jump down from 7,000 feet all the way down to 3,000 feet at Kingman. And then it's just amazing at how the railroad in about 75, 80 miles drops from 3,000 feet to just under to about 400 feet in elevation at Needles, just to the west. So it's quite the geography, quite the diverse geography change along that subdivision that the railroad goes through.
Those grades let you have a chance to get ahead of some of the trains that are going uphill, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's slow climbing up towards Flagstaff there through the Alpine section. But once they get west of Flagstaff, they can open it up a little bit out near Williams, and it'll slow down a bit going through the Crookton cutoff just west of there. But then after that, they can open it right up pretty much across the desert along Route 66.
Some of the rest of you folks have some questions for John?
Hey, John, what percentage of the BNSF fleet roughly is GEVOs? Do you have any idea?
I'd say 65% of the. I
Really?
mean, yeah, they purchase quite a. They have, I believe. Oh, I want to say a little over 1,500 to 2,500 GEVOs on the roster, as a
What?
rough guesstimate. I would think. They made a lot of purchases about 10, 15 years ago, and then, of course, within the past few years, with the whole tier 4 requirements, they bought some more GEVOs from GE. So the number is actually quite high. So it's pretty common to see at least one on a BNSF train.
It's
these
interesting.
days.
You're still running war bonnets and also GEVOs.
Yeah.
Old.
Just because right now the ports are still backed up and all that, and then of course oil traffic is picking up again. They actually reactivated more the war bonnet -9s and the Heritage 1 painted -9s to back in the service, just to keep up with the uptick in traffic recently. So it's quite nice to actually see more of those out on the rails again.
Good, thank you.
John, this is a great show. Where was there was a double stack that was all JB Hunt. Where was that one going?
You're gonna have to be specific because a lot of those have JB Hunts.
Okay, because I was out in Colorado in September, and on the joint line, I got one at Palmer Lake. That was probably a Denver to Texas one.
So that one most likely is just a reposition move of empty JB Hunt containers going from Denver to Los Angeles. That's actually a pretty common train that you'll see on the joint line, and it'll take the same route across Arizona to California.
So that one will run over Raton Pass?
No, so there hasn't been any revenue freight on Raton Pass since 2008, 2009-ish, I want to say.
So they run it down on the down into Texas on like the Amarillo?
Yeah, correct. So they run south from Denver to La Junta, and then they go south from La Junta to Amarillo, and then they run across the Southern Transcon route from Amarillo all the way to LA.
Yeah, Andrew, we don't usually get full stack trains through here. They don't seem to run on the joint line. It's just usually an empty reposition.
Oh, okay, but it was it was a very long, all JB Hunt train that I saw.
Yeah, that's the reposition train. BNSF does run an actual high priority stack train almost daily, north and south. It'll usually have merchandise traffic on the back.
That's right. They started mixing things, didn't they?
Yeah, and that runs between Texas and Washington State.
I was gonna say that one probably runs all the way up to Seattle. Yeah.
Like, John, isn't it a fairly recent thing where what used to be a whole unit train, now you'll see part of a unit train of one kind of cars mixed in with some other kind of unit train that you would have not imagined? That's kind of a new thing.
Yeah, I mean, with the stuff that we get through here, that's been happening for a while, and it's just small merchandise traffic that would be NSF tax on the back of those, or sometimes up front. But I know on the Transcon that when we were down there, there was we had that eastbound going through Williams Junction, and they pretty much combined a regular intermodal stack train with a empty ethanol train on the rear end. So it was basically running 4 units up front, 3 or 4 in the middle, and then it was pretty much just an ethanol train from that point on. So they're trying to cut costs down with crews, which is unfortunate, but
Yeah.
that's that.
Maybe it works. Yeah.
They
It's all
make it
part
work.
of-
They make it work somehow, but
It's all
it's
part of
unfortunate.
precision scheduling, I guess.
Yeah. Kind of like precision schedule.
Yeah,
That's a different railroad.
well, technically BNSF is doing that. They're just doing it unannouncedly. If you actually pay attention more closely at BNSF, at certain trains, you can tell that they're kind of adapting that, but they're not fully doing it like with other railroads have done in the past.
So, a couple questions that came in off YouTube.
Yeah.
Keith was asking, did you run into the BNSF police? Apparently, he was out there a while back at Canyon Diablo, and they were questioning him about how he got in without being on the right of way.
So we really didn't run into anyone. We didn't have any issues with anything. A lot of the crews were friendly. We even got a friendly wave there at Canyon Diablo. I was told by some of the local people that have been out there plenty of times is just don't get near the bridge. But as long as you stay behind the big telephone pole line there right next to the bridge, they really don't care at all. And a lot of people I know have been out there and they've never had issues.
Which of the roads did you use to get to it? The bridge on the east side or the west side of the canyon?
It's on the east side of it's on the east side of the bridge. It's not far from that meteor crater that they have out there.
Because there is a road on the west side as well.
Yeah, we took the road that comes in from the east end.
And then somebody else was asking, Ted was asking, so he enjoyed the show, but what section of the Transcon would you revisit again if you had more time or different light angles to work with?
Well, I want to revisit the Seligman sub again. No questions about that. I kind of want to explore more of the Gallup sub in New Mexico. And then I also want to do the Needles sub across the Mojave Desert between Needles and Barstow, just because it's quite different scenery than what we have out here. And it's different world. Be fun to do. Just go explore new places. Pretty much what my goal is now.
Was it kind of luck that you caught Amtrak, because some of the Amtrak trains have not been running daily, I know, for the last several months?
We actually planned this trip last year around, I think in November, and we actually based the trip, the start and end dates on the trip off of Amtrak's tri-weekly schedule. So we made it work to our advantage that we would get Amtrak going through, or going down and going back up, and also seeing it at least once while we were down in Arizona.
Yeah. And did I hear that, or do we know with any certainty that when the Amtrak schedules are coming back to every day on certain routes?
Unofficially, I heard it's going to be sometime in late spring, early summer, is what I heard. But the way things are going right now in DC, looks like it's promising that it's going to be within, I'd say, the next 90 days that we'll see Amtrak going back to daily service again.
And some of them, like the California Zephyr, might come back maybe sooner than the Southwest Chief.
Yeah, generally Amtrak likes to do these things in waves. So like 1 week they'll do certain trains, the next week they'll do another set of trains, and so on and so forth, rather than do everything at once. And that's how it kind of was going to tri-weekly last year. When they first implemented it, the California Zephyr, the Coast Starlight, I think the Coast Starlight and a couple of other long distance trains were the first to go tri-weekly, and then the Southwest Chief was the next week or so after that, and so on and so forth. So I'm guessing that's how Amtrak's going to do it when they eventually return back to daily service.
Yep. We'll hope the ridership starts to climb some more here soon.
Yeah.
One other question about the photos. Do you Photoshop them, or that's pretty much the way they were?
It's just basic post-processing in both Adobe Lightroom, and I really don't do anything in Photoshop other than resize the image and add my watermark. All of my like actual post-processing edits are in Lightroom. And it's just basic touch-up of highlights, shadows, sharpening, stuff like that.
Stuff we used to do in dark rooms.
Pretty much, yeah. Just all with the click of a mouse instead of smelling all those glorious chemicals.
Keep our hands clean. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, John, those photographs are so good. It almost make me want to think about liking diesel. So outstanding.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we're always trying to get a balance, between steam shows and diesel shows, old and new, black and white, color. Any other questions?
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it a lot. Been out there a number of times, and you brought back some good memories. That shot at Rowe you had coming east, I shot Amtrak there, and he was doing every bit of 79 miles an hour when it went by me at Rowe, and I'm sure you had the same experience there.
At Rowe, they weren't doing 79. I think they were going about maybe 45, 55 through there. They weren't going that fast.
There's some nice shots on the semaphores. That made the trip worthwhile. My brother lives in Phoenix, and we're running down there all the time. So I know all the shots you were at and all the way to California, but I've never had any luck hitting Amtrak. I got him once in Las Vegas, and that was it.
Yeah, doing that, you have to pretty much plan ahead, plan with the schedule. Basically, if you do it right, you can, if you get both Amtraks in the same day, you can do both trains and semaphores in one day.
Did you check out the cement plant along 40 that's got the several switchers?
Where's the cement plant at?
It's along 40, and I'm trying to remember. I've got pictures of it. You can't get on their property, but there's an overpass over the BNSF. You look down in their yard, and they've got a shuttle wagon, and it looks like an SW1 maybe, or one of the real early ones. It's a huge cement plant.
Is that Arizona or New Mexico, Wally?
New Mexico. I don't know. Maybe it is Arizona. It's Arizona.
Is it?
Before you get to the big power plant.
Oh, Joseph City. I think I know. We drove by there, but we didn't stop along there. No, the only time we actually stopped near Joseph City was the Jackrabbits trading post just west of there.
There's some nice shots off that bridge, not only the cement plant switchers, but it's some good east or west depending on the time of day.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we got any other questions?
Yeah, is it
Yeah.
Snowmageddon this weekend? Do I need to, call in for an airdrop of supplies?
Depends on your altitude.
And
I'm
where
in
you are in the
Georgetown,
state.
so it could get nasty up here. They're talking 2 feet up here.
Yeah.
Maybe the CNS will bring out the rotary.
Well, anyway, thanks again, John, and good to see everybody tonight. And so I think the March meeting is probably coming to an end.
Yeah, hope everybody can join us next month for the presentation from Dennis Livesey. And glad you could tune in, everybody.
Sounds good. Thanks,
All
guys.
right.
Thanks, John.
Good night,
Appreciate
all.
it.
Of course.
Yeah, thank
Have a
you and
good
good
night.
night.
Of course.
Thanks for your